By the way, the Egyptian hieroglyphic for woman was, guess what? A serpent. Then Madame Helena Blavatsky of the Theosophical Society said something, because she was on the ball with all of this. The appellation Satan in Hebrew and adversary belongs by right to the first and cruelest adversary of all other gods, Jehovah, not in the serpent which spoke only words of sympathy and wisdom. See that? What she's been saying in her books? Now also, when you read this term, born of a virgin, since we're talking about the Bible, we have to understand that this word immaculate conception is another covered term for genetic conception, meaning without sexuality. This is a euphemism for conception between a woman and a member of the serpent race. Remember I said that the females couldn't conceive sexually? When they went to Lemuria, that was changed. The sons of the serpent, realizing that the Adams and Eves should have congress together, changed the DNA of the female so that they could mate. But certain times there was specific women that the sons of the serpent themselves would connect with. And any time that that ever happened, that woman was always known as the Virgin Queen, right? Or the Virgin, when she was not with one of the Adamic race, but with one of the sons of the serpent race. And should there be offspring from that, that being was always called the Immaculately Conceived. Right. So Jesus Christ, Alexander the Great, everybody in the ancient times were saying they were that. Maybe a lot of them were. So just bear that in mind, that when you hear these covered terms, immaculate conception, it means some form of DNA or genetic conception, or at least a connection of congress between one of the races who would have known this. Now we see motifs of this turning up all over the place. Like I said, because of time constraints we don't have time. I just have one picture for you. Based on what we've been saying, just look at this famous logo. You notice how this is a woman that looks very much like a clone? See that? A cloned girl. Then you have what? Look at this. A huge red serpent, right? A dragon. You have a tree beside her, right? And then you have a black heart. And then you have the term of the company is Virgin Atlantic. Atlantic comes from where? The Virgins of Atlantis. Find out who Richard Branson really is and who he really works for. These rags to riches tales have been put in front of us. I mean, we've got to start seeing through a lot of this stuff. Talking about the Bible, blood and seed is, again, anytime that you hear the blood of Abraham or Jacob's seed, you know, just replace it with this word and things will start to make sense. Right? These terms are used a lot. The seed of Job, you know, and all of this. And what's going to happen to the seed of Israel and all of these things. These are cover terms for something else. In fact, you have this prohibition in the Bible, thou shalt not lie with the beasts. That does not relate to actual bestiality, because what the hell, what's that, right? But to congress with the serpents. To see how much sense it makes now? Right? The beast, this is a cover word. Thou shalt not lie with the beasts. Thou shalt not lie with the serpents. In the Bible. They don't like that. Of course not. Remember when Moses came in front of God at the burning bush and said, who are you? And God said, I am the God of thy fathers. And that's never been properly explained. How can God be God of whose fathers? His fathers? It's another meaning. Yes, God of your fathers, all right. The sons of the serpent were the fathers of the high earth cultures. But their so-called their fathers referred to here were the alien masters of Atlantis, later in situ in the Middle East. So when God Jehovah is relating to Moses saying, I'm the God of thy fathers, understand what he was talking about there. Circumcision, another wonderful invention of our modern age. When the foreskin is removed, the foreskin is the remnant, is it not, of the real proto-human DNA. The ritual of its removal is therefore, is said to be a divine edict, was to dehumanize and align one with the gods. It is the mark of our servitude. Because obviously a man needs a foreskin, right? Homo sapien probably had it. Don't you see then what the removal of it means? It's a ritual. To take away, to literally say, we remove the real, it's a symbol, but that was a specific symbol. And taking it away realigns you with the alien DNA and the genetic concept. To remind you that this is the mark of your servitude, that you serve the serpents. That's why you get it done in a hospital. That's why it's done under the caduceus. So Commons Beaumont, one of the great writers on this subject, a genius. For God's sake, this man, I don't understand how his works are not the rave all over the world. They're so suppressed. He said the history of the Old Testament is the history of Atlantis. So, now these serpent masters suddenly find out that this is the third time that their plans have gone awry. First, they're kicked out of their own planet, right? They have to travel across space, come to this useless planet they probably don't even like. They create a race of servants to serve them who won't serve them. They create a third race who will serve them, and then they're lured away by the first race. So they're really pissed now. In fact, they really are pissed, because it says, by Jack Barringer, in one of the most tragic ironies, the majority of humans continue to worship those gods who have abused them the most. Is that not true? Ezekiel says, wherefore as I live, saith the Lord God, surely because thou hast defiled my sanctuary with all of thy detestable things, and with all thine abominations, therefore will I also diminish thee. Neither shall mine eye spare thee, neither shall I have any pity. These comments about the wrath of Jehovah have a specific reference. Then shall ye know that I am the Lord. Do you know, somebody asked, I think it was Carl Jung, why Jehovah always talks about I all the time? He was overemphasizing his power, his wrath, that he'll get angry. Well, you only do that if there's an opposing side that you're trying to compete against, wouldn't it? So he says, I am the Lord, when, and you'll know this, he says, when their slain men shall be among their idols, round and about their altars, upon every high hill, in all the tops of the mountains, and under every green tree, and under every thick oak, the place where they did offer sweet savour to all their idols, so will I stretch out my hand upon them, and make the land desolate, for they shall know that I am the Lord. Now you see now from what we're saying why something like this, the caption would be written? Because the alien masters now wanted the Adamic race to know who the real God was. And that it says here that they would even slay the bodies amongst their idols. Idols meaning, that the idols will have to watch these people die. So I will send upon you famine and evil beasts, and they shall bereave thee, and pestilence and blood shall pass through thee, and I will bring the sword upon thee. I, the Lord, have spoken it. It's all from the Bible. Job 14, he shall flee from the iron weapon, and the bow shall strike him through. From Ovid, the poet, who wrote Metamorphosis, giants attacked the very throne of heaven, Jove struck them down. In the Mahabharata, it was as if the elements had been unleashed. The sun spun round, scorched by the heat of the weapon. The world reeled in fever. Thousands of chariots were burned up. The corpses no longer looked like human beings. Because, ladies and gentlemen, what happened was they were very angry. And they unleashed a huge war with thermonuclear devices against Lemuria. But the Lemurians, the sons of the serpent, weren't sleeping in. They knew this would happen, and they retaliated as well. And that was what we call the first war of the gods that took place on this planet around 12,000 years ago. And all of these terms come out are speaking about that. Look what they're saying there. Scorched by the heat of the weapon. This is a book thousands of years old, right? Thousands of chariots were burned up. What are we reading here? And in Jeremiah, all the cities thereof were broken down at the presence of the Lord and by his fierce anger. Remember that one? Behold, the Lord maketh the earth empty, turneth it upside down, and scattereth abroad the inhabitants. O my people that dwellest in Zion, be not afraid of the Assyrian. He shall smite thee with a rod, and shall lift up his staff against thee, after the manner of Egypt. O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in their hands is mine indignation. The rod and the staff are weapons. Thomas Beaumont proved that the wands that the ancients held, right, and this emphasis on the rod and the staff, are actually weapons of a kind. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens of the rocks of the mountains, for fear of what was going on. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Ephesians. Now look at this one. Woe unto us, woe, who shall deliver us out of the land of these almighty gods? Now they're asking for deliverance for the gods. I mean, one minute they're nice, one minute they're not. We even have a quote here where you're wanting delivery from the gods, plural. These are the gods that smote the Egyptians with all manner of plagues in the wilderness. Plural, the gods. different people writing, sure, maybe even different times, but they're relating to something that happened. The terminology talks about that. In the book of Job, Ignatius Donnelly, another one of your American masters on Atlantis, it sounds like a cry not of a man, but of a race. You see that? He got that. Remember I was telling you that? Think of not an individual, but a race. Donnelly was already on the ball. In the 19th century, he was a friend of Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln agreed to give Donnelly the rights to send out the Challenger, which was one of your Navy vessels, to do depth soundings for Atlantis. Within 1 month of him giving him that rights, Lincoln was dead. So Donnelly didn't get the budget to actually, in those days they were so interested in Atlantis, and Lincoln was very interested in this, and gave him all the rights, and they said that whatever you want, all the depth charges will be sent, and we'll take readings from the earth, from the bottom of the Atlantic. But Lincoln was assassinated and Donnelly's plan fell through. But he's written several books, they're on my book list, you need to get them. And he's saying this, it sounds like a cry, not of a man, but of a race, a great religious, civilized race who could not understand how God had so cruelly visited the world. Absolutely right. Look at this. Frederick Soddy is one of the greatest scientists, modern scientists. In his book, Interpretation of Radium, right, this physicist says, can we not read in these books some justification for the belief that some forgotten race of men attained not only the knowledge that we have so recently won, but also that a power that is not yet ours? I believe that there have been civilizations in the past that were familiar with atomic energy, and that by misusing it, they were totally destroyed. So isn't that some crank saying this? In the Ramayana, another sacred book of India, it mentions an iron thunderbolt capable of killing hundreds of thousands of humans. It was also said to be so powerful that it could have destroyed the earth. And these weapons could only be used by, look at this, royal decree. There is even passages where it mentions the fact that the weapon was used as retaliation for the other side using it first. Doesn't that sound familiar? In the Smagargana Sutrahara, it says, there is mention of manned space rockets as well as their means of propulsion. We have radioactive isotopes in Sodom and Gomorrah, where they found the area where they think the Sodom and Gomorrah thing took place. It's rich in radioactive isotopes. And that term, when the angel says to Lot's wife, do not turn back because you'll be turned into a pillar of salt, mistranslation. The translation of the word salt is more like our English word for vapor. You'll be turned into a vapor. You'll be vaporized. Because the wrath of the Lord is coming to this place. Well, they gone there now and they found nothing but radioactivity all over the place. Our word typhoon for a great, wind or terrible power of destruction actually comes from the word for the devil, typhon, which also means serpent. Hurricane actually means the same thing. Cane meaning serpent, hurry means the shaking of the serpent. So we even use the terms today implying some sort of beast or serpent. The reason is because originally the serpents did have a war on this planet. And that is why the ancient Gaelic people talk about the wars of the gods, where the sons of light, the sons of the serpent, had to fight these beasts, these demonic serpent people, for the knowledge. And how they had to conjure with magic and fight these demonic forces and keep them in abeyance. It's all been in the legends of Ireland. And how eventually those beings, in concert, destroyed the earth. Remember we talked about the fact that Tiamat, the first deluge, was created by the destruction of Tiamat? Do you know that the word disaster, another word we use when we talk about some calamity, actually means no star? Aster and dis without. The word catastrophe, right, actually means destruction of a star. Kata, to be breaking down, kata, to destroy or break down the stars. So when we even talk about a travesty of any kind, we're saying no star or destruction of a star. Because, yeah, it's not some small event when Tiamat, one of the planets in your system that looks like a sun, just explodes 50,000 years ago. I think we're going to remember that, Remember in Star Wars, when Luke Skywalker, after he notices that his parents have been killed, he walks out onto the plains of the desert and he looks up, and in the background, what does Spielberg show in the night sky there, or the day sky? Is two planetoids, two suns, two symbols. They use this a lot in mythologies. Now, you see,